stations for one and all.
The course of World War II was governed by massive air power from the very start, and the heavy bomber became the dominant weapon in a new form of total war. The most potent Allied bomber in the European conflict was the British Lancaster.
It was an aircraft that would see you through.
Flying at night, Lancasters pounded the major cities of Nazi Germany into a mass of twisted metal and smoking rubble.
It was truly a wonderful airplane and a major contributor to the victory in the Second World War.
The cost was enormous. Thousands died on the ground and in the air. Of more than 7,000 Lancasters built, almost half were lost. Using rare color film and detailed reenactments, Battle Stations follows the struggle to design and build Britain's most successful bomber, and joins a Lancaster crew on their deadly mission, a night raid deep into the heart of Nazi Germany. The bomber first appeared during World War I. These fragile biplanes, made of wood and canvas, were unable to carry heavy bomb loads or do much damage, but they left a deep impression on the military designers and planners. During the 1920s and early 1930s, European governments became convinced that bombers would dominate any future war. Yet Britain was slow to modernize its air force, and many of its aircraft designs were obsolete before they left the drawing board. Germany did not make the same mistake. In 1933, Adolf Hitler came to power, determined to create a new German superstate, the Third Reich. He at once began a huge rearmament program. Hitler created a modern air force, the Luftwaffe. Its chief weapon was to be the bomber. Within a few short years, Germany was openly preparing for war. The British government at last realized the impending danger and launched an urgent program to re-equip the Royal Air Force. They turned to aircraft designers like Roy Chadwick. He had joined the Avro Company in 1911 as a draftsman and steadily worked his way to the top. Chadwick was a visionary who combined the precision of an engineer with the eye of an artist.
He was tall and slender, and I remember him in dark overcoats when in his young days, with a white silk scarf he would have knotted. He had big brown eyes and an olive face and dark hair, and he was elegant. He liked kind of elegant things, and I think that is translated into his machines.
Roy Chadwick had a passion for his work and never stopped worrying about how to improve his designs.
It was winter, and the curtains would be drawn. He was sitting in the room after his evening meal, just quietly there, with the Manchester Evening News. And he would fold it over, and I'd see he'd do the crossword puzzle. And then I might go to say goodnight, Daddy, and give him a kiss. And I'd see all round the edges of the Manchester Evening News, all the calculations. He was doing two things at once.
In 1936, the Air Ministry invited designs for a new medium-range bomber. The ministry wanted an aircraft which could carry 8,000 pounds of bombs, fly round trips of 2,000 miles, and do it all with only 2 engines. It was a very tall order, which could have defeated a lesser talent, but Roy Chadwick rose to the challenge.
I asked him once, how do you design an aeroplane, Daddy? And he said, well, I think of all the parts first and then I sit down to do the design.
Chadwick designed his bomber around a massively strong central section in the shape of a cross. It was formed by the two wing spars bolted at right angles to a pair of girders, forming the roof of a huge bomb bay. After months of painstaking work, the plans were ready. Every single component had been designed and drawn, down to the last nut and bolt. Roy Chadwick named his bomber in honor of Avro's hometown, Manchester. In the summer of 1937, the Air Ministry placed an urgent order for 200 Manchesters, even though the prototype had not yet been tested. It was a huge gamble, but everybody now expected a war. It was simply a matter of when. A growing mood of panic swept the country. Londoners began building air raid shelters. Gas masks were issued, and the public were instructed on what to do.
If you are provided with a steel shelter and have not erected it, do so at once. Always keep your gas mask handy in the house. When you hear the warning signals, take cover at once.
In September 1939, the fragile peace collapsed. Britain was at war with Germany. As Europe was overrun, cities like Warsaw and Rotterdam were devastated by German bombers. Then in September 1940, Hitler finally unleashed his bombers on London. The Blitz had begun, and Londoners found themselves in the front line.
There was a lot of shrapnel coming down, pitter-pattering on the roof and all that kind of thing, and it was scary. I mean, incendiary bombs dropped in our garden. My best pal was there with us at the time, and it was then that we decided we wanted to join up. That particular night, actually.
The German attack soon spread to other British cities. In one devastating raid, the centre of Coventry was almost completely wiped out. The aim was to terrify and demoralize the civilian population into accepting defeat. The effect was to unite them in a single-minded quest for revenge, and that meant bombing German cities.
I used to come home on leave and see all the people going down into the underground shelters in London, you know, sleeping down there night after night, and I used to think to myself, you know, this is terrible. But I used to get a sense of pride then. Well, thank God we're hitting back.
More bombers was the slogan. Bombers began to appear, not in dozens, but in hundreds. And Germany began to get what was coming to her. For the first time, we carried the war into the Nazi camp.
But in the early stages of the war, the bombing campaign caused little damage. Most of the aircraft were too small to carry an effective bomb load. And without electronic navigation equipment, the bomber crews often missed their targets by many miles.
Bomber Command was simply incapable of hitting any targets, much less precision targets. They probably killed more cows and blew up more trees and damaging any portion of the German landscape that mattered. They thought that they were waging a precision bombing campaign. They simply weren't.
If the bombing campaign was to be effective, Britain urgently needed two things: accurate navigation aids and an effective, long-range heavy bomber.
Of considerable aid to the Royal Air Force is the big twin-engined bomber known as the Manchester. They carry a heavy bomb load at a high speed, thanks to the Rolls-Royce Vulture engines, and they have a powerful defensive armament.
Hopes were high as Roy Chadwick's Manchester finally entered service with Bomber Command. But behind the brave words, the truth was much less encouraging. Although Chadwick's airframe design was sound, the problem lay with the complex and unreliable Vulture engines, which struggled to get airborne with a full bomb load and regularly failed in mid-flight.
It just did not work. And they couldn't get the heights and anything, and it was a horrible plane.
The official verdict was finally delivered from the Air Ministry. Avro would complete the initial order for 200 Manchesters and then switch to building a rival design. For Roy Chadwick, it was a bitter blow. But he would not be beaten. He knew that his bomber could still be a winner. Somehow he had to prove it, and prove it fast.
Save up to £200 off new central heating with the British Gas winter sale. Call British Gas on 0800 754 754.
Ladies and gentlemen, a word from the Halifax.
So if you're ever in the red, don't worry, 'cause there's no reason to be blue, baby. And to this other high street bank, we're sorry. We charge our people less than you.
The current account with half the overdraft rate of NatWest.
It's brought my cholesterol down tremendously, which has been quite remarkable.
I was well impressed when my cholesterol level came down.
After only a short time, Flora Proactive is getting great results.
I think it's a plant extract that lowers your cholesterol.
Clinical trials prove Flora Proactive works because its plant sterols cut the amount of cholesterol your body absorbs.
I was surprised how quickly it worked.
Do you realise that my cholesterol is down to 5.1?
Mine's 4.8.
Anyone should give it a go.
Flora Proactive can dramatically cut cholesterol.
Just get on and use it.
UK Online is a national campaign to get the whole country on the internet by
2005. If you haven't got a computer, they'll give you access.
If you don't know how to use one, they'll show you how. Times are changing, and it's never been so easy to change with them.
Call 0800 77 1234. UK Online.
Right on target. Just for men hair colour targets only your grey hair. Replaces it with subtle tones, like your own natural colour, all in 5 easy minutes. Right on target. Just for men, targets only the grey.
The higher you build your barriers, the taller I become. No matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can.
When the world is weighing on you, look around. Because I'll be standing beside you. I see, I know what's inside.
Something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong.
The decision by the British Air Ministry to abandon production of the Avro Manchester bomber forced Roy Chadwick to rethink his design. He saw that what it needed was a set of bigger wings and a lot more power. He decided to remove the 2 unreliable Vulture engines in favor of 4 Merlin engines. The Merlin was an outstanding design, which already powered the famous Spitfire and Hurricane fighters of the RAF. After persuading the Air Ministry to give him one last chance, Chadwick went back to the drawing board.
In the tracing office, they work with pencil and ruler. But without this work, the giant bomber could not begin to take shape.
He told everybody, keep it simple. He always said, if it looks right, it is right.
The enlarged wings and their new engines were fitted. Extra fuel tanks were installed. and the finished aircraft was rolled out into the light of day.
He said to me this day, would you like to come with me? We're going to test a new machine. Of course I went. Captain Sam Brown, the test pilot, took it up. It was wonderful to see it overhead. And he manoeuvred it round, all banking and turning. I'd never seen such a big machine. And then he came back and landed, and everybody at one accord rushed across the field, and someone called up to him, "How did it go, Sam?" And he said, "Oh, it was marvellous. So light on the controls, so easy to handle." We got back into the car and were driving home. And I remember actually saying to my father, "Well, Daddy, you must be very pleased." And he said, "Well, I am, darling, but in this business, no one can afford to rest on their laurels."
The flight certificate, duly signed by Roy Chadwick, carried a new name for the test aircraft, the Lancaster. The machine suddenly looked and felt right. The problems that had plagued the Manchester were quickly forgotten as the glowing reports of the test pilots confirmed Roy Chadwick's faith in his design.
This is the weapon upon which the Allies based tremendous hopes. To the people who built the Lancasters, each doing his own task to the best of his ability, their success came as no surprise.
Soon, the Lancaster Bomber would become a household name. For one man, it would become the key to victory. Early in 1942, Air Marshal Sir Arthur Harris was appointed Commander-in-Chief of Britain's Bomber Command. He was an aggressive leader, with a single-minded determination to destroy the German war machine.
Press home your attack. If you individually succeed, you will have delivered the most devastating blow against the very vitals of the enemy. Let him have it right on the chin. Send that message to all groups and stations.
Bomber Harris did a marvellous job. He was brought in when Bomber Command was at a real low ebb.
Harris knew that the accurate bombing of strategic targets was almost impossible. In a controversial decision, he supported plans to adopt the German policy of area bombing. Like Hitler's Luftwaffe, the RAF would saturate major centers of population with bombs. And its chief weapon, which Harris called the Shining Sword in the hands of Bomber Command, would be the Lancaster.
And here's the bomb rack, which can open up with 8 tons of trouble for Hitler. It's 33 feet long. When it's released its load, another 2 or 3 acres of Germany will never be the same again.
The Lancaster soon became the undisputed heavyweight champion of the British bomber force. As it proved its worth in combat, fresh orders poured into the Avro factories.
We got a new aircraft, and on the side it was HWH, and at that time there was a film called Hell's A-Poppin'. Right, okay lads, this is Hell's A-Poppin'. So I got some yellow paint, I climbed onto the wing and I painted Hell's A-Poppin' all the way up. Hell's A-Poppin' it was. It was a lucky aircraft for us.
For many, the Lancaster quickly became far more than just a machine. It was alive, and to its all-male crew, the Lanc was definitely a lady.
It was love at first sight. There she was, and she was standing up on these long legs, and a black beauty. Funnily enough, I didn't feel that there was any rivalry with the rest of the crew, you know. I felt she was my girlfriend, and we all felt that it was our girlfriend, you know.
It took a crew of 7 to fly a Lancaster. The pilot, flight engineer, navigator, bomb aimer, wireless operator, and 2 gunners.
The most forward position was the bomb aimer, who was lying down in the bomb position. And if necessary, he manned the front gun. And the skipper was on the port side. Next to him was the flight engineer's position. Then you had the curtains, and the navigator sat behind those, so he could have his lights on his charts. The wireless operator was behind him, and then you went back over the main spar, and then you had the mid-upper gunner, and then you had the tail gunner. If any one of you didn't do your job, well, that was it. The whole lot of you went.
You live and sleep and eat together. You go out together. They rely on you and you rely on them.
The pilot in Bomber Command was always the skipper, irrespective of rank. And even if the group captain, the CO of the squadron, flew with me, I was in charge.
You weren't just a crew of 7. You'd got the ground crew. The ground crew were the boys who got that aircraft so they would bring you back. And we had a terrific ground crew we had. We'd do anything for them, and they'd do anything for us.
The ground staff, who watched and waited back at base, played a vital supporting role as the bomber crews risked their lives over enemy territory. In the control tower, they anxiously plotted the course of each raid. They knew only too well that with every Lancaster posted as missing, another 7 men would not be coming back that night.
The Avro Lancaster, the most powerful and efficient bomber in the world, and one of the most important war-winning weapons yet devised by the United Nations. The Lancaster is a name that is writing war history.
Although Chadwick had designed the Lancaster for mass production, it was still a monumental task. Each aircraft contained some 55,000 separate parts, involving roughly 500,000 engineering operations.
He had designed the Lancaster in 5 sections so that it could be made in all the different factories and then brought together. And with this simplification, they were able to put it together quickly and simply, and so much so that at the height, I think it was 1943, 150 Lancasters a month were being produced.
Meet a few of the ordinary, hard-working people devoted to this important task. Angela Roberts, a capstan operator. Maisie Rafferty at a press. Dobson Hind and his mate, Joan Evans, riveting. Every pilot of a Lancaster is confident that he's handling an aircraft into which has gone not only superb designing, but the proud craftsmanship of an experienced army of workers.
It's everything you wanted in a heavy bomber. It had got the strength, the speed, the manoeuvrability. Its weight carrying capacity was out of this world.
It took eventually 6 tons more than it had been designed for. Sir Arthur Harris said it was the camel that never knew the last straw.
In our training, we used to cut 2 engines on one side, and you could stand the Lancaster on its wingtip with 2 engines cut on one side. Marvellous aircraft.
I think the Lancaster was the finest bomber in the European theater of operations. It was truly a wonderful airplane and a major contributor to the victory in the Second World War.
By 1943, the Allies were equipped with enough heavy bombers to launch an all-out offensive against Nazi Germany. It was to be a 24-hour round-the-clock operation. The Americans bombing by day, the British by night. Electronic navigation systems were introduced, and the bombing became more accurate. Radio direction finders and radar scanners were installed in selected aircraft, and their hand-picked crews were given special training as pathfinders. It all came together at the end of July 1943, when a series of heavy raids on the city of Hamburg demonstrated the devastating effect of area bombing. Thousands died in the inferno as huge areas of the city were utterly destroyed. Area bombing had not broken the British resolve to fight, but Arthur Harris still remained firmly convinced that this was the only way to defeat Nazi Germany. They sowed the wind, he said. Now they are going to reap the whirlwind.
Spending time together with your little girl is magic.
Dad! Let's go!
No matter how big your little girl is. Come share the fun, the excitement and the magic at a celebration as big as Walt Disney's imagination. 100 years of magic at the Walt Disney World Resort in Florida.
We share a dream come true.
The car you can park anywhere. That'll be the day you Matisse.
Hello, Learn Direct. How can I help? Oh, no. It's for you, obviously. Sorry. Learn Direct, independent advice on courses. How can I... Hello, Learn Direct. Which course?
To a Learn Direct advisor, every call is important. If you'd like dedicated help on finding the right course, just give us a call on 0800 100 900.
Learn Direct, how can I help? Oh, hello, Learn Direct.
Learn Direct, the National Learning Advice Line.
Mum wants me to win the lottery. Dad hopes I'll meet a millionaire. I love what I've got. 2.5 bedrooms, a football pitch, works of art on the wall, and a car with a mind of its own. What more could anyone want?
It's not what you want, it's what you want to keep that makes insurance important. And Britain's largest insurer is Norwich Union. Together we're stronger. Norwich Union.
At PowerGen, we and Monsters Inc. have one thing in common. It's not our power stations. It's not our workers.
Morning, Sally. Morning, Ricky.
It's not our customer service.
Listen, I need a favour.
Whoa. No, what PowerGen and Monsters Inc. have in common is our energy. PowerGen, energy for mums, dads and little monsters everywhere. Call PowerGen to find out how to earn Monsters Inc. rewards.
As the scale of the operation steadily increased, so did the weight of bombs falling on Germany.
One of the great contributions of the Lancaster in the Second World War is its capacity to carry extraordinarily large bombs. The power of those weapons were such, when combined with accuracy, that you could really wreck big targets.
For 12 months, British scientists were working day and night on one of the most remarkable engineering feats of the war, the 12,000-pounder. And here it is, over 5.5 tons of concentrated destruction, the biggest bomb yet known in air warfare.
Lancasters eventually carried no less than 22,000 pounds, the 10-ton Grand Slam bomb. But most raids involved more conventional loads. The crews knew in advance what bombs they would be carrying. What remained a mystery was that night's intended target. One clue was the fuel load.
If they said, oh, it's only 1150 gallons, you think, it's a short one. But normally it was 2154, that was full tanks. So that was a long one.
As dusk was falling, the air crews would go to their briefing. Only then would their target be revealed.
When you entered, of course, there was a big curtain up over the whole map of Europe, you see. And that curtain was only drawn back when the CO walked in to tell you what the target was for that particular night.
There'd be a huge wall map with a piece of ribbon
marking the route that you'd be taking to the target. The first thing everybody looked at was where the end of the ribbon was.
You now know precisely the next item on that list. Cross it off.
Now, the tension began steadily mounting as 0 hour approached.
I used to go to Naffy and always write my last letter. Obviously you can't post it, and it goes in your locker, and if you shouldn't return, that letter would be taken out of your locker and sent to the family.